Okay, so welcome everyone. This is a recorded interview on the wonderful topic of knowledge graphs. My name is Isabella Massardo. I'm content strategist at Gala Global. And today I have the pleasure of introducing and talking to my friend Teodora Petkova. Welcome, Teodora. This interview has been a long time in the making.
Yes.
It has. I started following your work many years ago when you were talking about writing in the semantic web. And your book, The Brave New Text, was an eye-opener for me. And I think that's how we got in contact with each other. But before we talk about knowledge graphs and everything else, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit?
Thank
And
you.
maybe tell us a little bit about your work at Ontotext as well.
Sure. First, thanks for having me. I'm more than excited and delighted to be here with you and to be talking about language and knowledge graphs. And to introduce myself, as you said, I'm a content person. I'm a content writer. For 10 years now, I'm doing content writing, and I'm very much interested in the semantic web. And it is that intersection that brought me to Ontotext these days. For 2 years, I'm now in-house person in Ontotext, and I'm helping our company build our knowledge graph. And we're building that knowledge graph out of marketing content. And this is where the content writing, I wouldn't say expertise, but rather a mindset of communicating on the web is meeting that technology, which is in the first place, a web technology, the semantic web technology. And of course, it grew out of the idea of the web and the interconnectedness. However, it is also used across many private and enterprise in-house, let's call them assemblages, knowledge graphs.
Okay, we're gonna start from the beginning though, because we decided that this was gonna be a primer on knowledge graphs because the knowledge graph technology has been out there for some time. Everybody has probably heard about the Google knowledge graph. But in the localization industry, the term has just started now to appear here and there. So to start from the basic, what is a knowledge graph? And suppose you're talking to a non-technical person like me, how would you explain what a knowledge graph is?
Yeah, well, a knowledge graph is a structure. And before I dive into the technological aspect of the knowledge graph, and don't worry, it's not that technical if we go archetypal and look at it as a structure. So allow me to use a metaphor. Yeah, a metaphor. So a knowledge graph is a curiosity cabinet, meaning it is a place where you can bring together different pieces of information. I'm not going to call them data because, yes, data people who are building the knowledge graph are looking at these pieces of the knowledge puzzle as data. However, think about a knowledge graph as a cabinet, as a library. What is I forgot the word, where you go to the library, you draw something and you start looking at the cards. So imagine that the knowledge graph is such a storage. However, all the small compartments behind are linked together. And you are not defined, your ability to put information in different places is not defined or constricted, restricted by the lack of space or the lack of, I cannot bind that card to that card, although they're related. So the knowledge graph is a space where you put your information and it is highly interconnected. You are not, you need not to predefine the connections and say, I need to tag this content with this tag because I will link it to another content with this tag. No, you're thinking about what what you're storing as information and content, and then the knowledge graph allows you to interconnect these in many, many different ways. So curiosity cabinet is a metaphor. I'll try to be quicker though, because I'm talking too much. So
no, you're not. Go ahead.
the other way to understand it, and it's important because the knowledge graph is something that enterprises are increasingly using and building, is that it is an assemblage. I'm borrowing the term from the assemblage theory, but just for clarity, the reason we need to understand that this is an assemblage is because it is a technological construct, and it is also entering social relationships, meaning it is a dynamic thing, and it does depend on the way you're building it, on the way you're using it, and on the way you're in the future connecting it to your systems. So it's a constant dance between what you build, how you use it, and how you maintain it. And last, the technological aspect.
Okay, here we go.
And I'm talking about a knowledge graph built with semantic technology that is built with linked data. This is standardized, interoperable data, meaning once you describe your world with data, you're not using a sheet or a relational database. You're using a standardized, interoperable language where you say, this, for example, Isabella knows Theodora. And that language is understood by all kinds of data-fed agents. And this is why knowledge graphs, as a technological construct, are so important in this era of what you will probably, and we will probably go through the large language models. Because we need a way to help our machines help us. Last sentence, help our machines help us. This is the semantic web proposition. The inventor of the web, Sir Tim Berners-Lee, he has that vision where the web is machine readable. Well, now enterprise content can be machine readable.
Yeah, exactly. But to go a little bit more practical, okay? So let's take localization or translation. And if we want to design a knowledge graph for translation, how would we start and what it would look like?
Okay. The first thing is we need to start with what do we want to do with that? It sounds trivial, but it's super important that we know what we want to do with that technology. Why? Because it is so flexible and so powerful a tool that you need to know its applications, at least some of them at the very beginning, so that you define your scope, because that's a very common mistake to think that you can do everything. And yes, you can. However, in the first place, you need to understand what you want to do today and why. And this is the first step in building a knowledge graph. Define your, as we call it, competency questions. What do you want that cabinet of curiosities to be able to give you? Meaning you need to be very well aware of the business rules and the business logic of your domain. And then you also need to understand your terms, your concepts, how they relate to each other. But you need to be sure in that from a business side. And then all that knowledge is captured, and it is probably captured in different systems. As you said, in the translation industry or localization, any industry, you work with certain systems and they do have business logic somehow embedded in them. Or we have tucked the business logic as much as we can in a spaghetti system like WordPress, spaghetti code system like WordPress. So the second thing will be, yes, we have these competency questions, and then we need to find which systems have the answers. Then we extract the data, we normalize it, meaning we make the data talk at the same language, like so that you can query the different systems from one place, and you agreed upon what means what. And then you can start enriching the data with different sources. For example, link the concepts to Wikidata definitions of the concepts. We have on our website with our chief ontologist, Vladimir Alexiev, he created a 10 steps guide for building a knowledge graph. And I'm telling you, the first 3 steps are totally in our garden. It's communications, it's business operations. So if we are to design a knowledge graph for translation, we need to, me and you, we need to gather together, decide what's important for translation. Are there any ontologies that have already captured the logic of translation practices? And I feel like I'm going too abstract again. So let me give you an example.
Sure.
Ontotext had a project where they built a database of known fakes. What they did is they created a model by which certain websites are scraped, and you can tell it. By the way, it's very similar to a content model. So in the model, which is part of the knowledge graph, you have this, let's call it a template, which says fact, website source, myth detected, or something like that. And they're getting all these news and fake content, and they are able to find certain concepts in it. Why am I saying this? Because you can, with the help of a knowledge graph, you can look for Donald Trump. And you can, because Donald Trump is not just a string, it is linked to Wikidata, for example, and all the the names of Donald Trump in different languages, you can search in that database and get news in different languages about Donald Trump, meaning you can search for the concept regardless of the language it is mentioned in.
Yeah.
And I'm not a translation or localization person, and I don't know the intricacies of the field, but I believe this is something very useful for translators or for people who localize content, to be able to have a source of truth where you have the concept and you have all the translations linked to it, or maybe all the alternative names that are used when a given concept is put in content.
Absolutely. I mean, I played with the database of known fakes for a little while. I have to admit, and I found it fascinating, not just because it's useful for fact checking, but also for finding all sorts of information. And I can imagine that if you take a configuration like that or a structure like that and use it to find new terminology, for example, for a localization project, or to see how different concepts are reflected in one specific term, or even just find out about information in general, especially now where the localization industry is moving from just localization to in language, in culture, content development. Having structures like that, not just for content production, but also for content marketing, it could be extremely beneficial. And as you say, it could be a curiosity cabinet where you can find all sorts of things and all sorts of relations between entities or concepts, etc. So I will put the link to the database of known fakes under the recording of this interview, and I definitely think that people should go and test it and try it, because it also gives all sorts of information in various languages, and it allows you to translate automatically that information if you don't speak, like me, for example, I don't speak German. So as soon as I saw something that was in German, I clicked on translation and I got it. So it's really a fascinating platform. Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry, just something came to my mind, and I want to mention that in the process of that knowledge graph building and everything that I'm explaining, because Ontotext are doing text analysis, automated content enrichment, and such things that are closely related to a knowledge graph. For example, you can run an automatic text analysis over your text so that you can find, this is called named entity recognition and concept extraction further. But apart from these technological terms, you can have a text read by a machine and tagged against your own taxonomies. And for me at least, because you asked about localization and translation, and I'm all about content and content creation, communication, marketing. With our knowledge graph, the one that I mentioned, this is exactly what we do. We are using our knowledge graph on one hand to be able to tag against the terms that are important for us. And on the other hand, creating content, we are enriching our graph just because of that interplay between structured knowledge in a knowledge graph and text analysis. So, sorry.
No, it's okay. And I wanted to say that this way you're also able to give the user or the person who's searching for information the right information without too many distractions. Let's put it this way. This is what I find
Exactly.
fascinating about the knowledge graph technology construct, as you as you call it.
And the thing is that you don't need to design. I mean, you have a lot of work. Let's mention that. I didn't mention that. But to be honest, you do have a lot of work in tidying your taxonomies, tidying your content house, as I refer to that. But then when you go through that circle of hell in defining what's important, how these are related, then your content gets so many facets like a diamond that you can turn it and or give it to the user and they can follow their nose, as the semantic web expression says that. You don't need to design their path, they can design their own. And for me, that's the greatest value a knowledge graph can give for content and maybe for localization and translation in the place where you are meeting users. Because we're not only meeting users, we are users ourselves when we translate, when we do the localization tasks. We need that curiosity cabinet, or we need a structured cabinet to optimize our work.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go now. Let's try to go slightly more technical. I think I'm ready for that. What are the elements, the main elements of a knowledge graph? Technical, but keep it simple. Technical, but keep it simple for me.
Yeah. I hope our technical people won't listen to me. The elements of a knowledge graph are like structurally, these are like the elements of a sentence. As I told you, Isabella knows Theodora. These are the so-called triples. And you can look at them as nodes, circles, and edges. Maria Keet, I'm not, maybe this is an unknown figure for your audience, but she's a wonderful person teaching ontologies. She recently wrote a book, From Mind Maps to Ontologies. And many people, the reason I'm mentioning that is because many people are making a parallel between a mind map and a knowledge graph or an ontology. So that parallel is valid in the first second, but where the visualization comes. So imagine a mind map where you link these nodes to other nodes via edges. The edges are actually typed links. These are links, not the type we know, which is website A links to website B. These are links which are typed, meaning they're defined, and we can define the links. We can say this term belongs to another term in this way. Maybe, okay, I don't want to go deeper with that, but so, and if a mind map is we can read it and we can easily deduce because we're human, we need a mind map for the machine. We need a straightforward way for a machine to go from a data piece to another data piece. Why we need it? Because we want inference. We don't want to put in our knowledge graph explicitly everything. We want to create inference rules. So this is part of the knowledge graph. You have the triples, then you have inference rules, you have ontologies, and then you have a Sparkle endpoint, which is very nice thing, which you can link and hook to different systems. If your system was not that smart, it might become really smarter when you hook it to the knowledge graph, meaning when you allow it to query the knowledge graph.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I explained. Maybe
No, you
I
did.
created.
You did. No, you did. Absolutely. And I think it'll become even clearer because we're going to link to the knowledge base that you created and all the content that you created about the knowledge graph. So for those who are watching, just look for the link where you can find more treasures, so to speak, on this.
I thought about something, Isabella, very practical to kind of make people fall in love with the knowledge graph.
Yeah.
Because, for example, speaking of our knowledge graph, part of it is made from the exported tags in WordPress. This is, if we go back to the very beginning, this is where our knowledge was locked.
Yeah.
So we exported the tags from WordPress and we had a list of concepts. But that was a flat world. Further, our people, our ontologists, created the hierarchies, these tags. Actually, they created the relationships these tags enter.
Yeah.
For example, if we had a tag knowledge graph and then a tag knowledge graph embeddings, that's not a very good example, but they created the knowledge graph as a top term and then a secondary, or it was a broader term for knowledge graph embeddings. So this is the nitty-gritty. It's made of concepts and relationships between concepts and various rules, which even I mean I can't wrap my head around these because it takes a lot of logic, first order logic, to think through how things relate to each other. Not because we cannot do it, but we need to do it in a way that saves computer power and makes it easier for the knowledge graph to be consumed, as the expression goes.
Yeah, but I like the idea of starting as an example with the tags that you have in your WordPress website, because that's something that's very relatable for, I think almost everyone has a WordPress website with tags that you just make up as you go and as you publish content. So
Isabel, you don't make up. They are part of your language.
Yes.
I mean,
you're right.
No, this is a very good thing. We can elaborate just 2 minutes.
Yeah, sure.
If you make up a tag, you end up in a dialogue with your ontologist who says, what is that tag? For example, event management 2023 or something that you thought is very appropriate. It is not in the logic. We better be consistent. So that interplay between us as content people and people who are doing data management is bearing fruits. I like that because we are, with a knowledge graph, we are kind of tucked into a more structured reality where we need to be careful about tags.
Yeah, true. But, and I think when I create tags for a website, you also need to think of what are the terms that the users, the readers are going to use, right? Not just what you're ontology. So there's much more to it than just making up your own world and transforming it into a knowledge graph.
In a knowledge graph, speaking of the components of a knowledge graph, you have that possibility to say this word has an alternative label. And in the alternative label, you can add the words of your people, how they approach, how they name the topic or the concept.
Exactly. I think terminologists in the localization industry are going to have a ball with knowledge graphs, because that's just right up their alley, I think. I'm looking forward to see what reactions we're going to have from them. We already talked about a little bit about what the difference is from traditional bases and knowledge graphs. Let's talk a little bit about why knowledge graphs are becoming more and more important from a business and from a technological point of view.
I'm smiling because it's I mean, we can talk for months about that. Yes. And again, I'm smiling because I'm going back in the years where I first met knowledge graphs, writing for Ontotext and understanding how cool they are. And now here's the time where in this complex world, and it has always been complex, the thing is that its representation now in our digital world, in Siberia, it's this is the complexity, the double complexity, where you have a real world, and then you have the relationships and everything it produces in terms of data in a digital. It's not a copy. We're going to matrix here. But the reason knowledge graphs are so important is just like the website's information architecture is important. And you need to have a clear language of presenting your business in a more and more complex way, where websites are only one of your channels, and you have all kinds of agents reading your content, let's call it content. You need to have a good place to invite your stakeholders in. I'm looking for ways to be more specific. So, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's start from the idea that, let's go back to the very first ages of the web, where businesses realized how cool the web is and how they can use it as a giant TV channel to put all kinds of commercials and selling propositions. Well, the web now is not that channel, or at least we, the people, are not morons. We want information, and we want it in the right place. And just the way Google's knowledge graph are trying to organize the world's information, each of us, maybe the enterprises, need to be able to provide a structured representation of what they do through structured data. And this will help them internally with that interconnected content, where employees can look at things and find things just the way they find it on Google, and not fight with systems and siloed knowledge. So internally, you have that system, and then externally, for your people who are looking for information about you, because the communication is now heavily algorithmically mediated, you need a way to speak language and to speak data.
Okay. And I can imagine that with the knowledge graph, you can also kind of improve your decision-making process, maybe uh, in a way.
Yes, yes. Because that's such a cliche. Improve decision-making
Yes, I
process.
know. I'm
I
sorry.
understand that, and that's a valid thing. I'm not against that. I just want to put some heart behind that. Why do you improve decision-making? The way you improve your understanding when you go to the library.
Yeah.
When you want to
Again, we
write
go back
something.
to the curiosity cabinet.
Yeah, maybe that's my internal drive, but this is for me, improved decision making means giant access to information which is connected, meaning when you search for something, you get context. With a knowledge graph, you not only get just some words and lists, you also have the context, especially internally. You can see where that concept, for example, if you're trying to localize a term in something, I better not speak about localization, but
It's okay.
yeah, I will have to make up what a localization practice would be, but internally you can see which content has been published where, when. You have the opportunity to have these secret fields which are visible only to you. You can see which, for example, buyer's journey stage that content is. You can ask diverse questions which you can also ask a relational database such questions. However, the speed, the computational power might be different. So you can say, please give me content that mentions this and this concept and was created for that stage of the buyer's journey. And maybe links to these and these articles in Wikipedia. Just an example. You can construct multifaceted questions, and this is why the decision making is improved, because you have a bird's eye view, the so-called semantic layer.
Yeah, exactly. But that would that work even with other situations like business decision making?
Yes,
Of course, not just
absolutely
related
it
to
will.
content, but
Yes, thanks for, I'm so content
yes, so
fanatic.
am I.
Thank you for mentioning this. Yes, we have great and very interesting use cases across different industries. For example, finance, risk, compliance. There's one of my favorite examples, I wrote about that several years ago, is the so-called digital twin. Why are you able to make better decisions for the maintenance of a building? Because you have an overview of that, of its twin. You can see how the air conditioning is operating. You can link that to the temperature outside. Is it optimal? Is it not? So in a way, and thanks for bringing us outside content, in a way, decision making is not only improved by the knowledge graph itself, but by the ability of that knowledge graph to be linked with other data, with third-party data.
Exactly. And so when you come to improving, say, operations or workflows, that a knowledge graph could also help you with the, say, the logistics or the production of your company, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really interesting. One final question, and you know that it's coming because I have to ask it. What happens when you put together a knowledge graph? I feel like I'm talking, I don't know, I expect a Mary Shelley kind of answer, but we'll see. What happens when you put together knowledge graphs and large language models? What do you think Have you had any experience with that?
A new story
Okay.
is happening. You open a new blank page where we all need to write so that we write our own story. Here's the answer you expected, but I'm serious with that. There's really a great opportunity to hook an LLM with a knowledge graph, and people at Ontotext are really working hard in terms of research, like slow, deep thinking. How do you do that? So the opportunity is big, and the challenges are even bigger, because that LLM thing needs a lot of textbooks. So we better give good textbooks in the form of knowledge graphs. And I'm not going to lie that this is easy. It takes a lot of testing. It takes a lot of tweaking. If I am to write an article about that synergy, it will be, of course, an exciting place where you just you are able to access your knowledge graph and your database with simple natural language questions without writing a piece of code. And I forgot the name of the professor.
Now we can
Two,
add it
three,
later.
yes, 2-3 years ago, he said that, and it's still valid. LLMs are a great portal to semantic web technologies. Why? Because the limitations of large language models are met by using linked data and unique identifiers, like, again, cleaning our world content garden.
Yeah.
In terms of business application, we have a lot of projects running, super successful. It's a lot of work, a lot of resources, but it's kind of going slowly and steadily towards a place where you can, in a way, I don't want to say the big word standardize that, but kind of devise a standard hook between your knowledge graph and a large language model. But again, it takes a lot of work and design and thinking and testing.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, to put it simple, combining a large language model and a knowledge graph opens new opportunities, and the knowledge graph becomes something like a way to limit, control, or fact check the large language model, for example. Going back
Absolutely,
to,
yes,
for example, the
exactly.
knowledge base of the database of knowledge unknown fakes. If you connect that with the large language model, when you create content, for example, you can use that connection to make sure that there are no weird concepts or ideas in your content. Is that more or
Exactly.
less? Oh, I got that.
Absolutely,
And
you did. And
I did. Yeah, go ahead.
we hooked our, when we created the knowledge graph, our Ontotext knowledge graph, there was the LLM wave hasn't hit yet. And then now today the Ontotext knowledge graph is hooked to an LLM, and you can ask questions. And what the knowledge graph gives us is we can control the parts of content we send to the LLM to base its answer on, first. And second, when we get answers from it, we have a list of, we call that explainability. We have a list of sources that were used to construct the answer. And I'm not going to lie that the answers are perfect every time.
No, of course. Yeah.
but they are an interesting way of poking in that large pond of knowledge we have.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is fascinating, and I would, you know, that I would talk to you for hours about this, but I also know that you have to work and I have to work. So, thank you so much, Theodora. To be continued, because I know that you're working on something else, and and we're gonna keep in touch, and we're gonna definitely do a follow up to this interview. But
Yes,
for
I will
now,
be very happy to answer any questions or thoughts and
comments
dreams
or anything.
related about knowledge graphs, because I'm sure any language person will be fascinated by a knowledge
Yeah.
graph.
Definitely. I am absolutely sure. So for now, thank you.
Thank you.
See you on the web.
See you.